Toastmasters, talented Toastmasters.
Good morning and welcome to 2025 District 2 Conference Educational Sessions. Your speaker for this session is Omar Rivas, a 19-year-old veteran of Toastmasters, past district director, World Championship of Public Speaking finalist, business owner, principal at One Accord, leadership and executive coach and mentor, engagement alchemist, dog lover, and people aficionado. He has trained and spoken all over the world to military and public sector high-performing professionals on the behavioral psychology of engagement. He has given 3,000 speeches on leadership, business, and interpersonal skills, and over 8,500 evaluations in military and professional world. Here today to share the human connection that occurs when words are not enough. Presenting, deliver your message, use words if necessary. Please help me welcome past district director, distinguished Toastmaster, Omar Rivas.
They asked me to use the microphone primarily because, but you can hear me from here, right? But I'm going to use the microphone because they've asked me to do that. So I hope you don't mind if I just use one hand to do my gestures. Is that okay? And I will actually switch off from time to time just to make sure. Who remembers that look from your mom or dad when you were in trouble? You remember that? Can somebody demonstrate that for me? My mom, Cuban. If you had a Cuban mom, you would probably know it's like. Anybody want to share their mom or dad's expression? Yes.
Mom was one eye up, one eye down, looking straight into your soul.
Oh, geez. Isn't it amazing how that one look conveyed so much information? And we knew it. How often do we get into a position where we want to actually share a particular, or at least convey a particular emotion, story, understanding, event, or experience, but yet we go into this whole narrative of what it's like? Why do we do that? Anybody? I want this to be an interactive course, by the way. This is not just a speech, this is an interaction.
I guess to share feelings.
To share feelings, I like that.
Say prior conditioning.
Prior conditioning, ooh, you can tap into that, without a doubt, I like that. Anyone else? Yes.
Intimidate.
Ew, I like that one. I'm from New York, so I understand that. Anyone else? Yes. What? Yeah, it's interesting. What's that? Who? Influence them, yes. And typically, it's been said that people will actually make decisions or step towards an event or an experience or an understanding emotionally. And then they will rationalize it intellectually. It's really interesting. But when we start a speech, or at least we start writing a speech, we attempt to take the words to try and have them be influenced. Why are words so critical? When yet it is a factor in communication, but there's so much more involved. So how many of you, or shall I say, thank you, brother, who writes out their gestures? 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. So you actually split the page up, you write the words on one side and your body movements on the other? Jim Key, World Championship of Public Speaking, does exactly that. He actually splits the page in half, all the words are on the left, and on the right-hand side, he actually uses and actually not so much choreographs, but allows people to understand more than just the words themselves. And oftentimes, we're trying so hard for people to understand. Who was it that said, make sure they get it? Make sure they get it? It's really interesting. you can never make sure they get it. Ever. All you can do is tap into their own experiences and then transport them into your story. Does that make sense? So with that, there's certain things I want to cover, not so much from 1 through 6, although the reason you have dice is because how many sides to a dice? 6, right? What's that? Depends on the dice, yes, you're absolutely right. But often people forget the fact there are 7 aspects to a dice. Did you know that opposite sides of a dice equals 7? You did. Excellent. There's also a top, a bottom, a front, a back, a left, a right, an inside, and an outside. There's so many factors that we look at when it comes to a dice. We stop basically looking at the dice only from our perspective. Because if I was to put a dice in the middle of the room and your name is Nathaniel. Is it Nathaniel? Yeah.
Nathan's great.
Nathan is great. So I have to say Nathan is great. Okay.
The greatest that wants to.
So Nathan is great. We'll look at this die that I have in the middle of the room, and I'll say, Nathan is great. What do you think about that dice? And he'll say, oh, it's gorgeous. It's red and it's pearlescent. It's beautifully rounded corners. And there's 2 beautiful white dots on it. Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Hector, you will look at the same dice and you'll say, you know, I agree with Nathan the Great. And Nathan is great. Sorry. Nathan is great. And it is red and they're rounded corners and it's gorgeous, but there are 5 white dots on it. Nathan is great. We'll say, Hector, you're wrong. There's 2. Hector will say, no, there's 5, idiot. And then Nathan is great. We'll go on and start saying, no, you're not seeing the same. We're looking at the same thing. So how could you ever possibly make sure that people get it? When oftentimes we try to actually share a point, an event, an experience, an understanding, a learning, an idea, a concept, and we try to give it to them from our perspective. And believe me, it is so difficult, and that usually occurs when you use words. Because emotions are universal. If I was to describe the happiest moment of my life, all I can have to say is August 26, 1957. Do I need to go any further? But people will go ahead and write everything that has to do with what happened on that day. The narrative is just oftentimes so overwhelming. And we spend most of our time preparing for a talk. How? What's that? Your perspective. Anyone else? Writing it down. Yes. Did you say that? Thank you. Writing it down. So we're trying to use words to convey something that is experiential, and we're trying for them to understand it. And yet, words aren't enough. Heck, knowing is not enough. I train military officers on a variety of different tactics on behavioral psychology and engagement principles. And what I've come to understand is just give me the facts. Give me the top 10 things I have to change in order to become a better communicator. So imagine would Toastmasters exist if that was true? No. So what is the number one factor in how you can become a more concise and deliberate presenter? All right, take out your dice. Number 1, you. It's all about you. Does everybody here truly love the way they look on video? Oh, okay. Do you like the way your voice sounds on a recording? Okay, so just for me to be straight here, you are attempting to influence me or allow me to understand something with a tool that you don't like. Is that what you're saying? Think about that for a second. Number one on that dice, you. If you don't fall in love with yourself and your ability to engage with another human being, your engagement is going to be so limited. It's going to be only based on the words. And I guarantee you that the words I'm sharing with you today, you'll probably forget by the next session. But you will not forget my, right? Okay, you'll make fun of it at some dinner party sometime. I realize that. But the idea becomes, number one is you. Are you aware of what your assets are? What's your superpower when you are in front of somebody? Anybody can tell me theirs? What's that? Awesome. And so you have a weaponized asset. Most people will smile in order to convince. Make sense? And so why do we do that? Why do we put ourselves in that position? We're not trying to convince anybody. We're trying to have them embrace whatever you're sharing with them. And the number one factor in that is understanding yourself. When I started speaking and at Toastmasters, I was about 90 pounds heavier. And one of the most impressive assets I have was my belly. And I had this beautiful tie. In fact, there was a tie I was lent by my good friend Eric Vaughn for the World Championship of Public Speaking. But I had this incredible concern about being in front of people and all they're looking at is my belly. And no matter how much I sucked that in, that tie just went over and out. And then I did a presentation for about 300 Toastmasters, and I gave out evaluation forms. And I asked, secretly kind of, what are some physical attributes that the speaker possessed? Nobody mentioned my belly. Everything that I was so concerned about didn't really exist. And typically when we look at assets, we're trying to see the things that are preventing us from doing what we're there for. And the reality is, that's not the case. Now, up until that point, I developed a way of communicating where I would lean forward to make a point, and my tie was straight. So that was awesome. How many things are you doing to prevent people to see some of your flaws? Right? You start thinking about that. If you record yourself on video, how do you watch it? Sitting down. I love that. I love that. Most people will actually look at a video that they've actually presented, a video recording of something that they presented, and they will watch it completely. And they will start analyzing, not knowing that the reality is most people are auditory and you're actually going to be looking more for what you were saying than what you are doing. I would suggest, as many people have in the past, when you record your video, your speech, your talk, your presentation, watch the video with the sound turned down. About 3 minutes in, you're going to start wondering, what the heck is this? I keep doing this. I don't understand what this is. And I did this so many times. I played the drums while I was speaking, but you're not connecting it to the words. So you start to analyze something about yourself that more than likely you're not really aware of. Fair? Number one, you sitting down. You're just so proud of yourself. It's like, I said sitting down. Number two, dialogue, but in particular, blur words. Blur words are words that really have different meanings depending on who's actually in the room with you. If I said, I had a great night last night, it was really good. What's good? What's great? What's that? It.
Nathan. I see.
Nathan is great. I bring that up because all too often, we're all victims of that mentality that if we say something that is so universal, it's better. What's better? Better than what? It's good. It's incredible. What's incredible? Can you give a descriptor so people understand and they get it? Specificity is going to be one of the most key parts of being able to share the least amount of words that people can actually adhere to. It's just, and I'm sorry if I'm being imposing on, oh, you keep backing up, sorry. All right. Sorry, I'll do it with some other people. But my leash won't let me through, so. Blur words are, for example, I do a lot of leadership training and I do executive coaching, and there's companies, in fact, there's one particular client that I'm working with that is in Boston, and you're a gentleman, sir. And I asked for a report on the issues that are happening in the consulting division. And the manager basically wrote out about 6-7 paragraphs. And there's a lot of attrition. Most of the consultants are doing this. A lot of them are doing this. And I started to wonder, I said, how subjective is that? What's a lot? What's most? And I'm working with the company now on basically leading by numbers. So we have to set what the number is, put it on a needle, and then move the needle and figure that one out. The same thing holds true with your attendees. They want to know exactly what you mean. If not, they're going to take their definition. It's like saying, I have a blue car. What color blue? Right? This is something that words oftentimes more than not confuses the issue than actually adds to it, which conveys the idea of subtext. The subtext of what you're sharing oftentimes is confusing, but in our modern world, where we went from 2.5 minutes of attention in 2014 to now 73 seconds. The average human being has a 73-second lifespan of attention. So every 73 seconds, I'm going to go, what? The idea of understanding how you're going to convey to your audience more than what you say. It's more about not just body language. Who here said, I'm going to go to Omar's session because I'm sure it's about body language? There you go. Thank you, Said. It's not about body language. Because let me ask this. Who speaks body language? Who was that? Cubans and Italians and Puerto Ricans and everybody who uses their hands and like expression. It's often misconstrued because we start going so mechanical. And that's where oftentimes there's confusion. At the very least, ambiguity. Because until you identify one, two will be just an added mistake unless you clarify it. 3, have you ever been in a position in talking to someone about someone else? Have you ever noticed yourself, your position and how you feel about that person usually comes around in your conversation? That is body language. Peter, I got to tell you, you and I are friends. And quite frankly, I kind of like you. But I got to tell you, Eric Vaughn, I wonder about him. He's good, he's nice, but what's your opinion on him? What did I tell you about Eric Vaughn? Eric Vaughn's got some issues. I don't. He does, right? So my point is that have you caught yourself doing that? Oftentimes when we're sharing stories, when we're actually putting ourselves out there and we bring up the idea of someone else, who here uses the possessive of a person you want to bring into a story? My wife, my husband, my dog. Why do you want to share your possession and not the person's name? That doesn't make any sense. Context is about the name. Context might be, hey, Sandy, my wife. My wife, Sandy. Now the story becomes alive because they're dealing with a person, not a possession. Clarify that in every single talk that you give. If you give a person, if you give them a name, people will relate to that person, not the possession. And the story exponentially is embraced because they understand we're not just talking about you and whatever you have or own. It's more about that person. Does that make sense? You connect with that? How many find themselves doing that all the time? Yeah. Can you consider giving everything a name? Everything has a name. And if you want people to get it, give it a name. So the third one, and you can see the dice are 3 in a line. You're the one in the middle. You're the one at one end. The one in the middle is the one that you're actually trying to talk about. So consider making sure that what your emotional connection to that person is not revealed unless you're trying to influence them in a negative or positive way. It's like, hey, Peter, I got to tell you about my friend David Habowitz. Oh my God, the guy is awesome. He's phenomenal, right? I'm influencing you on who he is. How often have you done that with a story, with the person, with an event, with the concept or an idea? And that's a way of actually taking words out of if I just say, Peter, David. What do you know about David?
Which David?
Exactly. Okay, good. Thank you. David Habowitz, right? But my expression said more than 5 or 6 other words could have said. You've been given this tool to communicate. Why aren't we using all of it? Why? I mean, is it a fear? It's a question. Why aren't we using all of it? Who is concerned about using their this gift of communication to express an idea or a concept? Say more.
I feel like I look dorky.
You look dorky. I've known Linda for years, and trust me, she doesn't look dorky. No, I would defend you to the death. But see, here's that same principle. You're going to portray what you think that you are. And so that prevents you from being as expressive as possible, as embracing of the concept that you want to convey. When I went to the World Championship Public Speaking, I had a speech called The Box. And there was a moment in that speech where I just say, I was talking about my mom, and I stepped over to one side of the stage and said, Mom's no longer with us. Now, at the time, my coach, who was Lee Amatangelo, and if you haven't had a chance to meet Lee, I encourage you to. He was a mentor and a coach for me, helped me get to the World Championship Public Speaking. Well, I didn't get to the finals the first time, but I went to the semifinals. Lee stood at 3 o'clock in the morning at the stage on the floor, and he said, "Why are you smiling?" I said, "I'm not smiling." He said, "What do you mean? You're smiling." I said, "I came over and I said, Mom's no longer with us." He said, "That's a smile." I said, "It's not a smile, that's a smirk." He said, "It's a smile. You can't say your mom passed away and smile at the same time. Doesn't make any sense." I said, "It's a smirk." I was holding back tears. What I didn't know is what my assets can be interpreted as. That's why I said, do you record yourself? So, who has seen the emotional wheel? There's 133 different emotions on there. So if I was to ask each one of you to display facially, visually, based on Paul Ekman's work of microexpressionism, show me undaunted. All right, let's go somebody else. I'm kidding. It's interesting. We don't know how to express it. There's 43 muscles in our face, and yet we have a hard time trying to express exactly what we're saying sometimes. What's flustered look like? That's more like constipation. Okay. Thanks, David. This is kind of like a family reunion, I got to tell you, because a lot of people here know me, and I know a lot of people here. So thank you all for playing along. Raul, show me giddy. Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
On the how you express emotion, isn't it based on the conditioning in your family and your culture?
Absolutely. And you're absolutely right. The cultural perspectives and the influences from your family will always be a factor. And for example, I have this beautiful slide that I present sometimes, and it's Clint Eastwood. Giddy, sad, happy, and they're all the same. But that's the portrayal of who he has been throughout his life. Yes, each family is going to actually influence you on how you actually portray yourself. But are you trying to influence your audience based on your family's rituals or the ideas and concepts that you want them to take away? And what we attempt to do is to influence the people in the audience based on their engagement abilities, not mine. Universally, we tend to love laughter. We tend to love giddiness, kind of, right, Raul? We love to see these emotions. But like Linda so bravely said, she doesn't want to come across as a dork. What's a dork? Because in your family, it's different than yours. And it's different in each one of you. So why not take the chance and be who you need to be? Yes.
I've been thinking about your question is a powerful one about why do we do the possession thing, and to me, it's like it feels more vulnerable to say my husband Elliot.
You gave it a name. Yes, you gave him a name, right? Yes. Of course, very the vulnerability, the possession, the connection, but give it a name, because throughout the rest of your story, if you're going to bring up Elliot, by all means, you just have to say, Elliot was, Elliot is, Elliot did, not my husband did. You see where I'm going? The connection is so much greater. So 3, when you're talking about another individual that you're bringing into the story, make sure to check who you are at that moment. Who are you when you actually are sharing that information? Second, I'm not going to go into the 4 agreements, but the idea is to understand that you're influencing somebody else based on your perception. If I was to say, who likes carne asada, frijoles negros, platanitos y arroz? Denise is like, oh yeah. But some of you don't know what that is. That's my culture speaking. Right? Now, usually I would say, arroz con frijoles negros, oh my God, en puerco y asita. Qué rico. Right? That's me. But that's my Cuban heritage. Yet if you find, and I do a lot of work with the tech industry. I'm really happy to be here today. And I'm going to show you some data here. And the data is going to really influence who you are so you can be smarter. Let's get started. How many of you seen that? The idea is, why do we allow that to happen? Now, first of all, whether you're an evangelical Toastmaster, you should be out there. And just like my first mentor, when I gave my first talk at Toastmasters for table topics, he came up after me and he put his hand around me and he said, "We can help you." And I was thinking, I dropped the mic and everybody's just like, yeah. Evangelize Toastmasters. We need to eradicate the world of awkward speaking. Would you agree? Okay. Item number 4. Who has ever been on a panel where you're actually sharing some of your ideas? Yes. When there's 3 other professionals, this is why that number 4, dice. When there's 3 other professionals, how do you express yourself? Do you want to be the smartest person in the room? Do you want to be the person that answers all the questions? Why not?
Because they're vulnerable. They feel vulnerable.
As a panelist? Interesting. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's something I've never had anybody actually share. So I thank you for that. That's very astute. Yes. Thank you. And for the recording purposes, the idea is that they're in a panel. Sometimes there's always somebody who wants to show that their ego or their intelligence or whatever that might be. This is where gestures plays a beautiful part. I have been on multiple panels, and when the question is asked, as long as it's not directed to any one person, I don't try to prove myself. I just basically look at the panelists and go, that's it. And they get it. Not that I'm the smartest, but to pick me. Now, is that egotistical? No. All I'm asking is to give me an opportunity, because the person who is egotistical is going to come up and jump at the chance. I'm asking them to make a decision about me, not me make a decision about me. This is the influence of when it comes to being a panel or with other people in a conversation. How do you allow someone else to be the focus? How do you do that? Yes. Ask questions. Nice. What kind of questions?
So, Omar, what are you thinking about today? I see you're wearing a badge that says you're speaking.
I'm not sure yet.
Do you feel ready, or do you think you'll know by the time you get there?
I will be ready after it's over. I've given a form of this talk several times, but yeah, I like the fact that opening with questions does make sense. It really allows for people to actually understand that you're curious. And as long as it's not like, hey, what are you speaking about today? Right? Even though we might feel that inside, don't express that. But my whole point is oftentimes we restrict ourselves so much and we confine ourselves to that little pocket of words. There's 26 letters in the English language, 29 in the Spanish one. There's over 813,000 words. Put into a certain sequence, add the 7 vocal variety perspectives, the pace, the power, the percussion, and everything else, and you're going to have different things that come out of different people's mouth with the same amount of information. What's yours? What's your ability to sequence these words so that people can embrace it? Leads me to point number 5, or the 5 on the dice. Yes. Oh, my apologies. You're in Toastmaster? Okay. Have you heard of the 7 Ps? Okay. My next class is on the 7 Ps of vocal variety. And who knows them off the top of their head? Pause, power, pace, percussion, parlance, pitch. No. Wait, yes. Pause, power, pace, percussion, pitch, parlance. That's 7? What? At 6? Yeah. I know. No, we got power. What's the idea of, I can see the word, I just can't, and when I get it, I'll give it to you. And by all means, you can reach out to me at any time. I'll be happy to send you a whole sheet on it. Yeah. Do you know my email address? Omar@omarrivas.com. Feel free to email me and I'll be happy to send you any information you'd like. Number 5, when you are surrounded by people, you are the center. What did you? Oh,
I didn't catch number 4. A clear statement of number 4.
number 4? How do you actually interact with other people that are your peers? Panel, things of that nature, right? How can you gesture, or how can you actually put yourself in a position that the words aren't going to be the factor that actually determines that you are the panelist that deserves to be there? 5, you're the life of the party. You enter a gathering and you are now the person that people are going to go to get information, get an understanding, be influenced. How many of you have been there? How many of you have not? Well, it's either one or the other. So if you have not, look to become someone that happens to. But number 1 is going to be a focus. Make sure you know who you are. Number 2, make sure your blur words are totally clear and you're not actually using any blur words. Make sure if you're talking about someone else, that the people around you understand who that is and you're not trying to affect the influence. Number 4, look at your peers and identify how you can actually stand out without showing ego. Number 5, you being the center of attention is something that people are going to gravitate to understand something about you. If I ask each one of you, tell me about your superpower, Robert. If people laugh in your presence. I like that. Does anybody pick up on that? Does anybody know Robert? Is that true? Robert sent me a text a few years ago, I think, said, hey, if you want to eat 2,000 of anything, get a bowl of rice. I'm like, I'm lucky I wasn't near him. I would have keyed his car or something. But at the point of being the center of attention, oftentimes we do one of 2 things. We either lift our chests up and try to become who we're not, or reduce ourselves down to someone who we really aren't either. It's interesting. But none of you probably have actually analyzed yourself doing that. And I suggest you may try. My expectation is that the information you're getting from me is a springboard towards understanding things that you may not actually necessarily need to be a Toastmaster. But you may want to consider to be a human. One that is understanding of yourself and the people you're attempting to influence. Number 6. There are 2 sides to every stage. Does anybody understand here the concept of locational demystification? Locational demystification. David, don't say anything. David's heard me talk about this numerous times. When we are on stage, we actually have how many options to move? Right? Right? Front, back, diagonally, where else? Up and down, like around, yes. Yes, through the audience. Those you said the audience? I bring that up because oftentimes I don't know many people that understand how to do it correctly. Not because of stage use. Allow me to understand, allow me to elaborate. The idea of the way us here in the Western world, we read left to right, correct? And yet sometimes when we're doing a chronological explanation of something, we go right to left. Although subliminal, people don't pick up on that. But something is off in their mind. Something's not clicking. If you're saying 1, 2, 3, it should be 1, 2, 3. Additionally, if you're sharing a story, a speech about different people, and I share a story typically about Bill. Bill was one of those people that smoked cigars, had expensive suits, and taught me many life lessons. John was somebody that more recently has been able to shape how I think about leadership. Now, Bill, do I have to say Bill? I just have to say, do this, because that's where Bill lives. And oftentimes we don't do that. You need to ground the people in your story, the ideas that you have on the stage. So you're demystifying the location of these different elements that you want people to understand. This is a factor where number 6 is the 3 lines, the 3 and 3. You're on your left or on your right. And like I asked in the first question, who writes down their gestures when they're writing a speech? John does. Most people don't. And you wonder why. But if you can focus into the 2 lanes that are available to you, you can more than likely start at least thinking, when I bring up the story of an accident, let me tell you what happened in my accident. But at the hospital, this is what really happened. And now you can use your location more than just the words. I'm going to ask a question. Who here would be brave enough to describe a spiral staircase without your hands or your feet? We all know what it is. Somebody describe a spiral staircase.
Verbally?
Yes. Without using your hands or your feet. Around and around like a spring. So like a pig's tail? Corkscrew. Yeah, that's a corkscrew, but you can't step on a corkscrew. See, this is a beautiful exercise where yes.
If you've ever been in marching band, you put the pinwheels. You have 4 people in about a 10-foot space that are adjacent to each other. And as you make your maneuvers, the inside person on the right will take baby steps.
You notice you're using your feet and your hands? But isn't that interesting? See, we are naturally prone to actually use our body to communicate. We just fill it with words. The idea is not so much to eviscerate the words, but the idea is also, how do we explain this to someone? Because we naturally want to, or this is our natural inclination. Why can't you do that when you're hurting? Why can't you do that when you're in love? When you're happy? When you're excited? You can. You just have to define it. Does that make sense for yourself, culturally? Make sense? But the idea is to understand where your lanes are and where do you want people to go back and forth. Does that register? Because the spiral staircase is the perfect example. And I'm going to see if I remember this. It's a helix projecting from the foundation to its top with connecting lateral struts. I know. I'm trying to remember. You're right. It's natural for us, but yet we prevent doing it. This is why my message here is deliver your message. Use words if necessary. Use your God-given gift. And for those of you that I may have offended by saying God, I apologize. But use your God-given gift. That you each have this beautiful tool that you restrict so much because you don't want to look like a dork. Right? Why? Bust out. Be you, not me. Be you. I don't expect everybody to just be out there. But if a gesture, a facial expression, anything that has to do with your body can be expressed to convert words into an idea that people can embrace, more than likely you're halfway there. That's the truth. Do we have agreement here? Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to be respectful of time too. I can't imagine anybody here has any questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
Rebecca, this morning, we talked about stage right and stage left.
Yes.
And you spoke about stage a number of times. In a play, you have the fourth wall. It's a barrier. You're not interacting directly, usually,
Right.
with the audience. What's the best way that you use to make the connection through that fourth wall to draw the audience into your presentation? How do you do that?
Thank you. And I'll just jump. I'm going to answer you in probably a bit ambiguously, but I also want to give you context to that. David would do it differently than Robert would. You would do it differently than Denise would. Everybody has a way of doing it. Is there a best way? Yes. Get them to continually nod their head. How do you get them to nod their head? Yes.
You talk to them and you want them to respond to you and are nodding along as you're doing it. And the minute I get them to nod back, that's the connection.
If they're 4 years old, yeah. It's understanding what side talking is. If I was to share a story about my trip to Korea where we had incredible food. You ever been to Korea? Would you ever want to go? That's a way. Now, it's not the Socratic methodology. Some people will actually go into that level and say, well, I use the Socratic methodology. That creates interaction, but not engagement. You want to tap them into your story. That's where you get the head nod. So that fourth wall is broken once they have an interaction with you in some way. Can you get them to answer questions? Yes. That's not engagement. That's interaction, which works on an intellectual level, and that happens a lot in the tech world. But when we're trying to affect change or influence, more than likely it's understanding what are their needs. And you can only describe that based on your experiences and their connection to it. Fair? Any other questions? Yes.
Facial expression in a mirror.
There's 132 expressions. Yes. But it's not a mirror. I do a video camera. And I actually have done it several times. I'm not good at it. Jim Carrey is good at it. Right? I'm not good at it, but I also tend to, here's my most powerful asset. Would you like to know what it is? Or would anybody like to take a gander, a shot at what is my most powerful asset when presenting to an audience? What's that? Yeah, nice, but not powerful.
You're confident.
I'm not confident, I'm comfortable. I don't like confidence, it's too close to arrogance, but thank you. My body language. I have no fear.
Your words.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Rich voice, thank you. It's from New York and it's Cuban tempered.
And it's slowed down for the West Coast.
Yes, it has slowed down quite a bit. My face, my pace. Well, I was hoping my face would, no. But thank you, I appreciate that, yes.
It's gonna sound weird, but I'm gonna say your vulnerability, which emotes authenticity.
Thank you. I'll send you a check. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's years of practice, but thank you. Yes. Positivity. Thank you. My passion. I like that.
If you listen, you can react fairly instantly to what people say.
I had kids and I was a kid myself, so I've learned to do that. Allow me to share with you. Oh, one more. I had dice to help me along the way, so that really helped. Yes.
It's interesting. I normally sit towards the back of the room. I happen to be sitting towards a client, but I can tell you that if I were sitting in the back of the room, I would feel you as intensely as I do here.
Thank you. I appreciate these kudos are outstanding for my ego, and I thank you very much. But I'm going to empower you with my greatest answer, or at least the understanding of my greatest asset, because now through the rest of the conference, you're going to start viewing it. It's like, remember when you learned about ums and ahs? All of a sudden, everywhere you heard ums and ahs. Yes. Close. They're related. My eyebrows. I use my eyebrows so distinctly on purpose. I've weaponized my eyebrows on purpose. Because nobody can ever get angry or say something rude when their eyebrows are up. And when I said, Nathan, well, he said it. When Hector said, Nathan is great, is an idiot because you saw 2 dots, he laughed. Not because, that's an insulting statement. But I give it the idea it's my eyebrows. Understand where your eyebrows are at. And now for the rest of the conference, you're going to see a bunch of people and you're going to go, that's weaponized, that's not real. Ralph.
The nose through this whole presentation held the microphone in one hand and gestured wrong. Never switched. Any comments?
Yes, I wanted to give you consistency. This would have been okay, and it would have been forgiving. But if I remain in one place, then you understand the consistency. You will do one of three things. You will decipher, discern, or discard my gestures, and hence you'll listen to my words and what I'm trying to share. So I have to form a certain amount of consistency. Fair? So, yes.
At the beginning, you mentioned that a die has 7 sides.
Yes.
I only heard 6 folks. So is there a point? Because I was like, curious.
Yes, and you just heard it. My greatest asset. Again, it's something that took years for me to understand. What is the difference with giving one speech, with recorded speech to one group, and to another group and having different, not outcomes, but different interpretations. And what I factored in was my eyebrows. And that is probably one thing that you'll probably have to understand. There's a reason why I have clear glasses. It's not because the color of my hair has turned whiter, but it's because I want you to see my eyebrows. That's really important. As insignificant, and I can tell you a story. Trent, a CEO of a company that does repetitive motion clinics in large corporations like Genie and Toyota, was a professional speaker. He was running scores in the 3s. He asked me to help him out. In the professional world, you get a Richter score 1 to 5. And I coached him, and I saw right off the bat, good-looking guy, articulate, educated, very well-dressed, beautiful beard, just wonderful hair. And I saw him present to an Occupational Health and Safety Administration conference. And right off the bat, I saw what was happening. Did I mention he had a beautiful beard and beautiful hair? He also had one big eyebrow. And every time he got passionate, and there was two jumbotrons behind him, and every time he got passionate, did you know that Occupational Health and Safety Administration conferences are stacked with mostly women? And they would give him low scores. I finally said, hey, I figured out what your problem is. It's your eyebrows. No, it's not. Let's go to the tape. And I showed him. And he all of a sudden figured out that that was actually, he was losing tens of thousands of dollars in speaking engagements because of his eyebrows. The moment he trimmed, I mean, the next 6 weeks he was, I want to talk to you about repetitive motion and how it, but he finally got a grasp and his business came back in 18 months only because of the eyebrows. And that's a case study. That's why I mentioned it as a number 7. And I mentioned it for you so that you can ruin other speakers here at the conference. After they speak, you can come up to them and say, you know, your eyebrows are, but you're ruined for life. With that, I want to say it's been an honor, a privilege, and an absolute pleasure to have been allowed to come here and hopefully share some information that'll be vital and may be helpful for you in your speaking career. My pleasure.
Toastmasters.